to the today's session. I'm Tushar Sharma, a third year CSC student at IIIT Bhopal. And today we have a very special guest with us, Bardhan Mishra. He's a software engineer at Quantized. He has cracked GSoC 2021, Season of Dogs 2021. He's a community leader at GDSC IIIT. He's an outreach member, AWS community builder. There's so much to talk about him. There's so much to talk about him. So, hello and welcome, Harsh. How are you?
Hi, Tushar. Thanks for the general welcome and thanks for having me for this session. So, really excited to meet all of you and just put a word forward about the various open source programs and how you can get started with some open source organizations.
Yep. So, if I missed something to introduce about you, you could add in it.
It is pretty much about me. So, right now I'm a final year engineering student, and next year I will be working at HackerRank. So,
Yeah.
this pretty much summarizes everything about me.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
So, today's session would revolve around GSoC. So, first of all, I like to tell the audience about what exactly is GSoC. Yeah, so GSoC stands for Google Summer of Code, and it is a global online program which focuses on bringing new contributors into open source development. Contributors work with an open source organization on a 12 plus week programming project under the guidance of mentors. So as I mentioned earlier, Harsh has cracked GSoC in 2021. So Harsh, before deep diving into the process of GSoC, it would be great if you could describe your overall experience of the GSoC, which could motivate others to participate into it.
Exactly. So, can I start sharing my screen maybe?
Yeah, sure.
Sure. Just give me a second.
Yep.
Um, yeah, this should be it. So I hope my screen would be visible right now.
Yeah, it's visible.
Cool. So just to give a basic primer, Google Summer of Code was established, I guess, 16 or 17 years back by Google. And its main motive is to help the student developers get started. So Google, as you may know, like it is one of the largest software-based companies in the world right now. And due to this factor, Google
Yep.
uses a lot of open source products. So when I say open source projects, like you can maybe think of something like curl or maybe Linux kernel, or let's say Firefox itself, Chromium itself. So Google capitalizes upon a lot of open source projects, and Google felt a need that maybe we should be giving back to the community. Maybe we should facilitate this whole program in such a way that we can overall help the open source communities to develop their projects, because open source communities are always low on support. They have very less people
Yep.
working on them. They always have the funds crunching, so they won't be able to pay a lot of people like who are working on it full time. As you might have known, like this recent log4j issue that has happened like in the Java development world, it basically
Yep.
showed like how underpaid open source developers are and how many companies don't feel a need to maintain these kind of open source libraries. So
True.
Google was one of the pioneers in this. They felt the need that we should be maintaining open source projects, especially the ones that they depend upon. So they started this program with the main motive that they want to help the students also to get started with open source. Students are a very vulnerable class of developers. Like they have just started programming, I guess, 1 or 2 years back, and they're still looking for some relevant experience, and nothing provides them a better experience than participating in an open source program.
Yep.
So this is how Google Summer of Code started. Initially, very few organizations were a part of it, but with the time, more and more orgs started participating in it. And right now, more than 18,000 plus students have participated in Google Summer of Code, and nearly 40 million plus lines of code has been written, and some 17,000 plus mentors have participated right now. I will be a mentor. I will be a mentor the next year as well. So this will increase the number at least by one. Uh, so as you can see, like there are nearly 746 open source orgs. The number is going to increase. So there is a lot of ways in which you can participate in any like organization depending upon your interest. So it is not like that you should be participating only in organizations that have a web development project or that has an Android project. You can literally participate in various type of orgs. Like if I go to 2021 program, you can easily check out that there are orgs from various fields. So let us say you want to work on something that is related to gaming or 3D designing. So we have got something called as Blender. Let us say you want to work on maybe, just give it a second to load. Yeah, so let us say you want to work on some object storage project. So there is Ceph, which is sponsored by Red Hat as well. If you want to work on some open source analytics, you can pretty much work on Chaos project. You want to work on the inline browser that basically powers Chrome and Edge today, you can work on Chromium. You are someone who is from an electrical background, maybe you do some circuit designing, you can easily go to CircuitVerse. If you're someone who likes to play around with DevOps, with cloud native and all of that, we have got the CNCF. Or else you're someone who is a history nerd like me, maybe you want to just decipher those ancient texts that people used to write thousands of years ago, you can go with CDLI, which is one of the most popular orgs. I was a part of an org that is called as the Metacall, and Metacall pretty much revolutionizes the entire cross-language function call mechanism. So just consider that you have written a code in Python and maybe you want to use it in JavaScript, or let's say maybe Ruby. You can easily use Metacall for that purpose itself. So this is exactly how the various orgs are distributed across GSoC. There is literally each and every org coming from different areas of interest. If you're someone who is more into artificial intelligence, deep learning, you can go with TensorFlow. So this is how like Google Summer of Code has basically revolutionized the entire open source development field. And its impact has been far and wide. It is not like only a few thousand students every year get to participate in open source. Various other programs like Outreachy has successfully copied the model of GSoC in a way that underrepresented people are given much more space to participate and be a part of open source. We have also got programs like the LFX mentorship, which is powered by the Linux Foundation, so that they can give much better mentorship to newbies, the newbies who might not even know how to make a pull request or maybe how to use Git. And there are other programs called as the MLS Fellowship, which again is kind of model like a fellowship program, but it gives us a space to contribute to open source as well. So GSoC, again, as I would say, it is not an internship with Google, or it is not an internship even with the respective organizations that are participating with. It is just a rocket pad for like your open source dream. So maybe you want to become an open source developer. You want to like contribute to these kind of software that makes the world a better place. GSoC is the perfect launchpad for that. So you participate in it, you learn more about it, you contribute to a project, and then you use it to like further develop your open source career. My GSoC experience has been with Metacall, but in the midway itself, I was picked by a company called as Quantized that pretty much works on open source itself. So right now, even I'm a full-time engineer right now, I pretty much work on open source over there. So this is the kind of the impact that GSoC brings to you.
That was a great description by you, GSoC, for GSoC.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it would have helped everyone. And others could contact you probably for you are being a mentor at it. So it would be great if you can have a contact with her directly.
Exactly. So
Uh,
yeah. So just to describe it a bit, if you want to contribute to, let's say maybe,
Hello.
yeah, am I audible?
Yep, 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 yep.
Yeah. So let us say if you want to contribute to Metacall itself for GSoC 2022, we have a specific repository here. All that you need to do is to go to github.com/metacall/GSoC-2022, and you can easily check out the various projects that we have right here. Some of these projects are really at the cutting edge of the software engineering and software development. And chances are very high that you might have not seen such a project in any other kind of internship or fellowship program before. But trust me, it would be a hell lot of fun. So you would be working on the infrastructure side of open source, the development side of open source, and more. So yeah. Tushar, I guess you can drop this link on the chat if it is enabled.
Yep, I'll do it.
Sure.
The next thing which I want to ask is if you could provide a brief of the processes which are involved into that is applying for GSoC, that is applying starting from the proposal, applying for GSoC to getting the stipend to completing the project. What are the processes involved which would help the audience know much better about the processes?
Exactly. So all of the information that I will be saying, like it is already on the GSoC website, so you can easily check that out anytime. Perhaps my most favorite part is like how it works, because it gives us like a complete roadmap of how GSoC entirely works. So the very first part is the application part. So normally, GSoC usually had only one time duration, which was for like around 10 weeks to 12 weeks. That was before 2021. And the contributors were usually paid around 3,000 US dollars if you're staying in India. In 2021, they reduced the stipend and they reduced the time commitment. Many people welcomed it, many people did not welcome it. But that is a debate of some other time. But it allowed the contributors to like dedicate some of their time to some other stuff as well. Like in my case, I was like doing my GSOD as well at the same time, so I had to kind of balance both. But this year, GSoC is open for both like small projects and large projects. So if you are going for a small project, you will be like paid around 1,500 US dollars. That will come it like somewhere around 1,10,000 rupees. And if you're going for a large project, that would come around 3,000 US dollars, and that would go around something like 2,20,000 or maybe even bit more. So like for both of these things, the very first thing that you need to do is to apply for a specific org. Now, this kind of application like goes different from for different individuals. I would say like don't try to fall into the survivor syndrome, like survivor bias, sorry, where you exactly see someone's journey and you try to emulate that, because every org has a different set of application process and a different set of selection criteria. Like if I talk about big orgs, like let's say Mozilla, which unfortunately is not part did not participate in 2021, but it might participate in 22, and there are some other orgs like Wikimedia. They have a very stringent application process. They really like the contributors to work with them for at least a few months. So you might see some of the contributors working with some GSoC orgs for 6 months or 8 months or maybe even a year. I know a contributor who has been contributed to an org for like 2 years, and he still has not been selected. So this thing happens, but you should not be dissuaded by it. Then there are some medium-sized orgs that don't exactly look for prior contributions, because working on the software is very difficult sometimes. The kind of orgs like CC Extractor is there, or ML4Psi is there. Like these kind of orgs don't exactly expect you to have prior contributions. All they expect you to do is like maybe make up some few patches, like a documentation fix or maybe a small bug fix, or else they will provide you some sort of an assignment that allows them to test what kind of skills do you have. They won't be taking any interview, so you don't need to worry about it, but they will be like handing you over a simple assignment that you can maybe tackle in an hour or two, and this is how they would use that to judge whether you're suitable for their project or not. And finally, there are some orgs like Metacall itself. There are 2 or 3 more orgs that ask you to develop a proof of concept. So as I said, Metacall pretty much works on the cutting edge of technology, and not just Metacall. There are multiple other projects that they don't exactly know whether it is technically feasible or not. So what they would expect is that you can just come up with a simple proof of concept, nothing more than like 200 or 300 lines of code that exactly proves that whatever you're trying to build, it is feasible and you can exactly work on that. So you can easily consider that as like a mini GSoC before your actual application itself. And I used it as like a way so that I can complete my GSoC project, like majority of it even before I was selected. So this was like my contingent plan. Even I was not selected, I will still complete that project. And this is how I did it over there. So the very first thing that you should be doing right now is to start looking out for orgs. So the organizations will be like selected around March or April. I'm not sure of the exact date, but if you try to contribute at that time, it would be quite late and you won't get the required space, the time and the dedication from the mentors to help your profile become much better for the organization. So start looking out for the orgs. The best place for you to do so is to just go to the past programs, check out the orgs that have participated in the past years, like in 2021 or 2020 or 2019, and try to find out the orgs that have been selected more than once. That is the best bet you can play. But every year there are some new orgs coming up, so you can easily check them out as well. And that would be like much better if you have already been contributing to that org, which might be selected like the next year itself. So once you have decided that, okay, I want to apply to this org, you have to like write a proposal. Proposal writing is an intensive process. It requires a lot of dedication, a lot of time. I remember like when I was writing my proposal, I had to like spend up 14 to 16 hours per day, like penning down a lot of thoughts, editing those parts, talking with my mentor, like, is this looking good or not, or whether I should change it, and all of that. But a proposal should basically demonstrate a plan of what exactly are you planning to do for the next 10 or 12 weeks, like whatever your duration of the project is. and how exactly will you be tackling the entire project. So there are two main parts to it: the timeline and the project plan. If any of these parts is weak, chances are very high that your proposal will be rejected prematurely. So they require something that should be completed within 10 weeks. It should not be something that will take like longer time, and it should not be something that can be completed like within a few days itself, because mentors do not exactly like to work on boring projects. They want to work on some exciting projects, and this is the best way in which you can exactly demonstrate on like how exciting your project will be and what kind of technical problems will you be solving with it. So once you apply to it, you will be entering into a pre-community bonding period. Like this is a time when your proposal is being judged. And let us say if your proposal has been selected by multiple orgs, like let's say 2 or 3 orgs, the organization admins and the mentors will be communicating with each other to like basically judge on which org you are like more suitable with. And if your proposal has been successful, if like all of the contributions that you did were positively acknowledged, you will be easily selected. You will always get a vibe of that like few weeks before itself. And once you're selected, you will start with the coding period. So in my case, the coding period was for 10 weeks. Phase one was for 5 weeks. The phase two was for the 5 weeks. And with the completion of each phase, we were judged by the mentors whether we have passed this phase or not. If you have failed a single phase itself, that will simply mean that you have failed the entire program. So a lot of my friends were failed in the first phase itself, and a lot of my friends were failed in the second phase. And that was quite painful to see after like checking out a lot of the hard work that they have done. But it still was not acknowledged because they might have undercommitted or they might have overcommitted, and they were simply not able to put up the required time and the effort for that project itself. Uh, so if you pass the first phase, you will be getting the first installment of your stipend. Like in my case, the first stipend was somewhere around $700. And once you complete that, like phase two as well, you will be getting the rest of the stipend as well, along with a certificate and an acknowledgement letter that you have successfully completed the GSoC for this year. So you can easily like put up the GSoC tag on your resume right now, on your LinkedIn right now. You can start looking out for jobs, for internships, especially the ones which pretty much focuses on open source or maybe like working with open source components itself. So this is how I got my internship at HackerRank. A lot of my interviews were focused around my GSoC experience. And this is quite good to have because you can exactly showcase that you can not only implement a project, but you can start a project from scratch. You can think on the architecture, you can plan the project, you can plan the milestones, and you can successfully execute it within a given timeline. So that is a powerful thing. And that exactly shows that you are at the topmost cream of the engineering undergraduates in India.
That was awesome. You've put in a lot of hard work here.
Yeah.
You mentioned about contributing to the organizations prior to GSOC.
Mhm.
So how does a beginner approach to contributing to OS? For example, what were your pushes to open source, and how could a beginner approach to contributing OS when he's just going through it?
So I can take an example for the current org that I'm working with. So I'm working with an organization called as Mojo Global, and it is pretty much focusing upon climate change action. So I participated with this organization for Google Season of Docs. And the reason why I'm talking about is because I have a better experience with this org than my GSoC org because
Oh.
of the fact that I worked with this org for a very long period of time. So if you are participating in any organization for the very first time, you should be joining up their communication channels. So literally every community right now has got some sort of a Slack community or a Gitter channel or maybe a Discord server at some place or the other. So in my case, this is like, okay, let me open the Slack for Mojo Global. So this is our Slack community for the Mojo Global right now. And this is where like all of the things basically happen. So we have like a lot of channels right here. We have got the general channel, we have got the GSoC general, we have got the GSoC channel, we have got the documentation, the data sets, the communication, cloud, and more of these project specific or mentorship specific channels. And the main purpose of all of these channels is to basically allow the contributors to basically communicate at one single place. So once you have an idea that, okay, this is where the entire Slack community is located, or this is where the communication channel is located, be a part of it and just start observing all of the communication that is going on. So a lot of the active open source communities basically hold weekly or bi-weekly or maybe even monthly calls. So try to join them and try to understand on how the project is progressing and how you can start contributing to them from your perspective. Once you have a basic understanding, start looking for interesting projects. So Mojo Global has a lot of projects. We have got the Flints, which is completely written in C++. We have got Flint UI, which is written in Vue.js, Flint Cloud, which is written in Python and Flask, GCVM, which is written in R, Flint Reporting, which is developed in Angular and Java. So as you can see, different orgs will have like different kind of projects and different kind of technology stack. So try to find the technologies that you find interesting or maybe you're already proficient with and start looking for a good first issue. So if I go to the project that I'm maintaining, which is community website that is built using React, you can check out the issues tab and you can check out like what are the good first issues that is located right here. So maybe just go to label, search for good first issue, and you can check out all of the good first issues that has been created and the issues that are not yet assigned to anyone else. So as you can see, like this is one good first issue that is not assigned to anyone right now. There is another good first issue that is not assigned to anyone right now, and some of them are like basically stealing away. So you can just go ahead and you can say like, hey, I want to work on this particular issue and I can maybe submit a small pull request to fix this. And this is like how you can like basically get started with your first ever contribution. I'm not exactly sure where my first contribution was in this community, but it was something as simple as removing a small import option. So if I just go down here, I guess it was in data pre-processing. I don't, yeah, this is right it. So this was my first patch. And I guess like you can see that I just removed a very simple import right here.
Yep.
So even small contributions like these are appreciated, like simple typo fixes, fixing the performance or fixing like making the code more readable, refactoring the code to modern standards, or maybe contributing to documentation and all of that. Every feature, every single patch is appreciated in the community. And the main reason why you should be starting with something simple is because it can break your mental barrier. Every time you start contributing to an org, there is always a mental barrier. There is always a fear about how the people will be judging you. You might think that, hey, I have made just a 3 lines change, and I don't exactly think that it should be worthwhile for a pull request. So as soon as you think that, there is a mental barrier that is created, and this will like start you to think on how you can make much better value to the community. I would say just go ahead and make that patch, take the feedback from the mentors and move ahead. If your patch is merged, then that is well and good. That shows like you have broken that mental barrier and you can get started with even better contributions right now. If the patch has not been merged, you need to take the necessary feedback and you need to move on with the next. So once you have made your first contribution, start looking for better issues right now. Maybe take up the ownership. This is one of the most important parts of any open source org. Like just say that, okay, this feature is being developed. I can take an entire ownership of this. I will make sure that this entire feature is ideated from my side. I can create an architecture for it. I can create a plan for it. And I will be the one executing it on a whole. So take the ownership of it and just see like the wonders that it is bringing to you. Once that particular feature has been merged, you will see like everyone is literally appreciating you for all the hard work that you have done. And you can get the vibe that open source is not just about GSoC. It is about like getting a whole lot of feeling like about how you can make the world a better place. So Mojo Global is just one example here. The same feeling would carry on with any other open source project that you will contribute to. So I contribute to a lot of projects. Some of them are like SciPy, which is a statistical computing library. So for anyone who is into data science and machine learning, SciPy is one of the most essential packages that you might be using. There is also another project called as LocalStack that allows the AWS developers to test their applications locally. So in whatever org that you're contributing to, you will always see that once your patch has been merged, you get a lot of appreciation and you get a lot of feedback. And you will always look forward on how you can make a much better impact to the whole community and the whole project.
That were some amazing tips. Uh, so if we summarize it for someone, then they need to look out for communicating, better communication into that organization, and just start communication, contributing
Exactly.
to the org. Yeah.
Exactly.
Even
So
even
if
they
I have to
might be
say one
small
line,
contributions.
yeah,
Yeah.
if I have to say one line, open source banks upon communication.
Yeah.
So better you are at communication, the better chances you will have in getting into any of these open source programs or making your mark in any of these open source communities. No matter if you're an introvert or an extrovert or an ambivert, maybe you have not talked with a lot of people on internet. that doesn't matter at all. You can just go to any particular issue and you can check out like how they're discussing and how they're brainstorming upon things. So if I show you something, this is like one of my work that I did like with Ralph. So Ralph is like the maintainer of NumPy, Skype, and data APIs, and he's kind of my mentor as well at Quantized. So as you can see, like we are currently working upon migrating the entire build system of SkyPy from setup tools to Meson. And there has been like 30 commits. There has been like more than 100 plus file changes, as well as 600 plus like line changes as well. So if you just go through this entire conversation, you will be learning a hell lot about the build systems, about continuous integration, continuous development, and all of these stuff. So just going through these open source issues, open source pull requests, you will get to learn a lot of the things that no other online course or no other offline course as well might be able to teach you. So just go through them, start learning up things, start stalking these projects and all. Like I personally use this explore option a lot. This exactly showcases you like all of the projects that are trending today. Uh, so these are the big projects that are trending right now. So maybe you can just open up any of these projects. Let us say I'm interested in uh, Log4j scanner. It has been built in Go, and I guess it might allow you to check out like which application is using Log4j. So just go to it and start reading the code as a whole. So this is the main.go. You can check out this code right here. You can go to the utils. You can go to the CMD. You can check out like how this tool exactly works, how it has been architectured. You can check out things even by individual commits. So if I just go to this particular commit right here, I can exactly see like how a particular bug was fixed. So going through these things a lot will exactly teach you a lot of things about how open source works in general and how projects are exactly developed from the very start.
Yep, it would be a great learning for everyone.
Yeah.
So we could deep dive into proposals. How do we write them exactly? For instance, if you could show up your proposal, it would be a reference for everyone present here.
Exactly. So give me a few seconds.
Yep.
It just got out of my mind that I have to keep my proposal open. But yeah, just
Uh,
give me 1 second,
yeah,
please.
yeah, sure.
So yes, this is here my proposal is. Yeah. So I hope my proposal will be visible right now.
Yep, it's visible.
Yeah. So my project was initially supposed to be developed in C++, but after communicating with my mentor, we decided to do it in Python. So there might be some discrepancies between the proposal and the actual project right here. So this was the first page, like basically giving it a nice cover that, okay, this is my proposal for GSoC 2021. The
It looks
second part
cool.
was, yeah. So this was my part about name and information. This is where you can exactly put all of your personal information for the others to see. So I guess like I have a lot of irrelevant stuff right here, but some of the things are pretty important. Your name, your location, your GitHub username, your Discord username, because my entire community works on Discord. Your college, your month and year of graduation, because GSoC earlier was open only for students, and they required some sort of a gap between the GSoC year and your graduation year right there. But that restriction has been lifted, so even professionals can participate. Your email, your time zone. This was important because my mentor was in, I guess, Spain at that time. So we need to be sure, like, whenever we are communicating, we are on the same page. My programming languages, my LinkedIn, my Twitter, my curriculum vitae, and all kind of these basic stuff. After this, I had to like keep up a synopsis. So synopsis basically like is a kind of a declaration that I'm submitting this proposal for this and that kind of purpose, and I have this kind of understanding with my project and my proposal. And this document contains all of the relevant information like my plans, my methodology, my deliverables, and all of the other things that I would ask to be considered for my selection process. And after that, we can like just put up an abstract. So abstract should be something that can be summarized, that can summarize the whole proposal in like, let's say 2 or 3 paragraphs. So in my abstract, I just say like, okay, we have to develop a Jupyter kernel for the metacall code. So this is the exact purpose of Jupyter notebooks, and this is what metacall code does. So my project aims to like create a wrapper so that we can easily use a metacall core library from a Jupyter-based interface. And then what should be the benefits to the community? Because whatever thing you're working on, it should have created a positive impact for the community you're working with. Maybe it can be a new feature, maybe it can be fixing multiple bugs, maybe it can be working on the infrastructure side of the projects and all. So just put out on how the community can benefit from your project. And once you do that, you can start working on the project plan. So you can entirely divide your project into 3 or 4 or maybe even 5 main parts. So in my case, there were 3 main parts. The first one was developing the kernel. The second one was integrating the kernel to the Metacalls API. And lastly, I had to test the kernel and make sure that I can deploy the entire interface as a package. So once you think on these 3 or 4 or 5 project plan, start working on them, start brainstorming with your mentor, or maybe even individually about how you can make this a success. If you're thinking of some particular approaches to solve this problem, try to explain on what is the rationale behind this approach. And what can be the implementation details. So in my case, I was pretty much working on a kernel, so I don't have a lot of architecture diagrams. But if you're working on, let's say, a front-end project, wireframes are really appreciated. So maybe use up a tool called Figma or Adobe XD so that you can easily pen down a basic wireframe about how the front end will look like. If you're working on a backend project, just create some API schemas so that the other person can exactly know on what are the endpoints that you're going to implement and what will be the particular format for that. You can also develop a small POC to exactly showcase that and maybe link up some of your code samples right here. I see that a lot of people do that, but I did not exactly do it in my case. And yeah, I have like a basic architecture right here around how this entire kernel would be structured. And finally, what are the things I will be integrating to this kernel? So it was kind of a multi-language kernel where we can use multiple programming languages on a similar Jupyter interface. So you can put up the entire parts to it. You can put up like what are the basic architecture, what is the control flow diagram for this part, and finally, how you can test this kernel and how you can document it, because testing and documentation is something that you should be doing in any GSoC project over the last few weeks of the remaining program. And finally, how would you package this up? So that's the first part for it. There is also a schedule for deliverables, which is basically the timeline. So I described everything that I would be doing before community bonding. So this particular time is when my application was being considered. So I was not yet selected, but I still put up a basic pitch on what are the exact things that I would be doing at that time. Then what are the things I'll be doing in the community bonding, the phase 1, the phase 2, and finally the general notes, which exactly showcase on why exactly I should be considered. Because in every org there are multiple applicants. In my org there were like 12 applicants coming in from different parts of the world. In orgs like, let's say, Wikimedia, there were like over a 50 plus applicants as far as I know. So competition is always tough, and these kind of notes basically exactly showcases on why you should be considered for this above the rest of the folks. So this is just my proposal, so don't exactly fall into the survivor bias right here. We also have got something called as the GSoC Proposals Archive. So this is kind of an initiative that the current GSoCers did, and they basically summarize all of the things, all of the proposals that they have written in this one single repository. So you can go to 2021, and let's say maybe you are interested in 1 or 2 particular orgs. Let's say you're interested in MetaBrains. You can just go ahead and you can like open up a particular person's proposal and you can check out on what are the things that they did over there. So this is the proposal for Akshat. So you can check out like how he has structured this proposal, how he has like given out entire wireframes because it was a front-end specific project, and what is the timeline for him. So as you can see, like he has pretty much summarized everything in very short, which is quite unlike me because I stretched up a lot of things. But everyone has got different styles of like writing the proposal. But in the essence, the proposal should basically create a pitch for you. Like even before putting up a proposal, chances are very high that you have already been selected or rejected if you have been working with a community for a bit of a time. But the proposal is basically allow the orgs to make a definitive decision, because chances are very high that there would be a deadlock uh, around 2 or 3 students on a single project or maybe multiple projects, because even the organizations have limited seats. So chances are high that your mentor might select your project, but at the end of the day, it would be rejected by the org admin, because the org admin is prioritizing some other project over your project. So that would be a sad note, but it happens a lot of times. So your proposal should be in such a way that exactly showcases that whatever you're picking, it is beneficial to the community and it can be beneficial to your overall development as well.
Yep. So you need to create a balance about contributing to the organization as well as the level of your proposal. It should be
Exactly.
balanced out. Yep.
And one of the things that you should be looking at before making up a proposal is how exactly your work report will look like. So now you're all dreamy-eyed about participating in GSoC and all, but let me tell you that passing GSoC is much, much harder than actually getting inside it. So I have known a lot of students who were depressed for like a few weeks during the coding period, and we always used to rant like how we are not going to make it till the end, and maybe we should just drop off and all of that. So that was a funny moment because even though we always boast on LinkedIn that yeah we have passed GSoC, we have done it successfully, there were times when we were entirely low on energy and motivation. So before even participating in GSoC, try to take a look at our work and the things that we have done over the 10 weeks or 12 weeks period. So the best place to do it is like to just go over here and look at the different final reports that we have prepared. So that can exactly showcase like what is the kind of commitment you will be needing from your side. So if you want to like check out Saransh's final report, he worked with an org called as the num focus. So you can exactly see like the things that he has done, the original project proposal, the project idea, the project presentation, and everything. You can see like what kind of commitment and what kind of expertise is expected from you during GSoC. Every org has got different set of expertise, different set of technologies, but by just going through these final reports, you can obviously like develop a very basic idea of it.
Yep. A person he has created his proposal. Now the time for applying is there. So does it create a sort of advantage if he applies at the starting, or does it have an effect if applies at the end, or it doesn't affect at all?
Uh, exactly like this question will differ from person to person. In my case, I applied to I started contributing to my org around early March. And it was at that time when the GSoC orgs were declared. So I started contributing very, very late. I also read a blog around how a contributor got selected into Zulip. Zulip is like one of the most popular orgs in GSoC. And he had just contributed to that org for like 10 days. While there were some contributors who have been working for a few months and they were rejected. So it entirely depends. Some of the things that would be taken into consideration is how active you were in the community, like how actively you were engaging on chat channels, and even something as simple as like helping someone out, like on the chat would like create a much better positive impact. Because one of the things that almost every GSoC aspirant would notice is that people get really competitive around February or March. Like this is almost 1 or 2 months before the applications get closed. So you will see a lot of people joining these communication channels, expressing an interest to like participate in GSoC, and people would be competitive with each other, like even on issues, pull requests, and all of that. So someone might have taken up an issue, and someone else might have put up a pull request for that, simply because they want to show themselves as competitive and much competent for that particular project. So in that case, all you need to make sure is that you are empathetic to the other contributors, and you also realize that GSoC is not a competition and it is not something that should be bragged. So try to help out as many folks as possible. Try to reach out to as many new contributors you can. Try to help them out with basic contributions. And trust me, all of this will basically show like how positive you are in the community. It won't be impacting you negatively as of such. No one will be like no one like will be going over you if you already have a firm understanding of the whole community and the whole project. So be helpful to everyone else. Or being early or being late doesn't matter at all. It is like the quality of conversations that you have engaged with the community, the kind of proposal you have put in, the kind of contributions you have made. All of this will basically count towards whether you will be selected for GSoC or not. And even if you don't get selected, and your project proposal has been quite phenomenal, you can also get a contract-based role. So I had one of my friend from NIT Rourkela. He actually applied to a GSoC project and he was rejected. But later his mentor reached out to him and said like, okay, we really like your project and we would like you to work on this. So they decided to offer him like 1,500 US dollars on a contract-based role for like 3 months so that he can continue working on that project. So even if he was not able to get into GSoC, like having a literal tag, but he still got paid and compensated for the kind of the work that he did over the course.
Yep, the story that you told about your friend, that was really cool.
Yeah.
So GSoC doesn't only depend upon your technical skills. It high focus is also on your soft skills. So you need to work upon
Exactly.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So currently GSoC has become a sort of buzzword, and little is known about Season of Dogs. So if you could
Mhm.
please throw it a light upon it, Season of
Exactly.
Dogs. Yep.
So one of the pain points that we saw during the Google Summer of Code is that a lot of the projects were like around code and implementation, but some of the orgs had already a lot of code developed, and they were really looking for some documentation based stuff. Like if I take an example, this year LLVM had a project that was completely focused upon project documentation. Now, this project was not at all related to the code, but since LLVM has put up this project and LLVM is a very big org, and its project is being like dependent on multiple other projects as well, it was given a free pass. But obviously, Google saw this as a pain point because now they wanted to have a separate stuff for technical writers as well. So they brought up this program called as the Google Season of Docs. And as you might see, like as the name is very much evident, it is all about technical documentation and technical writing. So if you're someone who is not very much stepped into code or development and who wants to write stuff, or maybe who wants to design stuff, or maybe do some minimal coding, Season of Docs is the right option for you. And technically saying, Season of Docs pays even better than GSoC, and it is also for a longer duration. So if I give a comparison, my GSOD internship was compensated with around 5,000 US dollars. That is almost 3 times what GSOC currently offers. While some of the other technical writers were also offered up to 10,000 US dollars. That is more than 6 times what GSOC exactly offers. So right now, Season of Docs is pretty decentralized. It means that Google offers a fund of of around like between 5,000 to 15,000 US dollars, and it is completely upon the organization on how they want to spend it.
So you are,
So
can you negotiate with the organizations for the stipend?
yes, so a lot
Okay.
of the technical writers that I have known have negotiated with it. I was also on the negotiation side. Like I negotiated my stipend from 3,000 to 5,000. So this can exactly happen. There is also some stipend that is reserved for volunteers. So there might be some people who might not be directly selected under Google Season of Docs, but they will be working with you. So they have also to be paying like some volunteer stipends. And even the mentors can get stipend for the kind of support that they are offering you. So every organization has different set of rules, and if you go and check out the results, you can see like all of the orgs that participated this year, and you can check out their proposal. You can check out like what kind of support that they were offering. Like if I go to NumPy, so you can check out like about NumPy, the state of NumPy's documentation, how the NumPy documentation is built, and one of the parts. Okay, they have not kept it right here, but let me go to some other project. Let me go to okay, let me go to HPX. So yeah, so HPX had a project budget, and they said like they will be offering 5,000 US dollars to technical writers, 200 US dollars for swags like T-shirts, stickers, and all of that. And the total budget that they have is like 5,200. If I go for my org, like which is Mojo Global, you can check out the Mojo Global budget right here. So technical writers were supposed to be paid 10,000 US dollars, which was to be divided between two writers. Volunteers were to be paid 500 US dollars for each. So in total, 1,500. Project T-shirts and the Mojo Global mentors were like completely volunteering. So they were not being paid in kind or anything as such. So it completely depends upon what kind of organization you're participating with. Uh, GSOD, on the other hand, has no standard application process as well. It is totally dependent upon like how the organization wants to have their application process. Like in my case, I was selected impromptu, so no application, no proposal, nothing as such. I was working with my org for 3 months, and they really liked my work, so they selected me up. But if I talk about orgs like let's say uh, PyTorch Ignite, they had a really stringent application process. So you have to fill up a Google form, you have to put up a proposal, then you have to interview with them so that they can basically understand on how competent you are or how fit you are for this project, and then they were going to make up a selection decision. So you need to be like much better focused on GSOT if you want to participate in it, because there is nothing standard as such. There is no like specific references on how you can make a cut into a GSOT org. All that you need to do is like be really active in the community, understand the things that they are doing, and start pitching on how you can specifically improve the documentation and the content landscape of that particular community itself.
Yep. GSOT might appear a bit easy, but isn't it so easy? Easy because Google has clearly mentioned it on the page that they're not expecting someone to teach technical writing, but they want
Exactly.
someone who's currently experienced at technical writing.
Exactly. So GSoC was the first of the example that Google started. So Google has like recently started experimenting if they should be keeping their open source programs only for students. So GSoC was kind of their first experiment with it, which was highly successful because this year's GSoC was quite dominated by a lot of professionals.
Yep.
Very few students could actually make the cut because obviously we cannot expect the students to go head on head against professionals. So they saw that this was successful. The organizations were pretty satisfied, so they have also opened GSoC for professionals as well. But don't fret out. Don't think like you have like less chances. Very few professionals actually have the time commitment to go with something like this. So majority of orgs still want to have students so that they can create an inclusive and diverse space for every one of us.
So how could a student enter into this technical writing thing if he is a complete beginner at it?
So I would say technical writing is very easy right now, and it can open a gateway for opportunities right now. So if you're completely new to technical writing, maybe start writing blogs. So go on Medium, go on Hashnode, make up a blog and start documenting your experiences. So maybe you participated in a hackathon, just put up a blog about it. Maybe you learned about React.js, just put up a blog about it. The best thing to happen with blogs is that if you're looking out for some internships or maybe full-time jobs, your potential employers can exactly take a look at your blogs and they can exactly make a decision that you are quite proficient with these particular technologies. But blog writing in itself can teach you a lot of things about technical writing, how you
Yeah.
can make sure that the technical concepts are communicated well, how you can take care of the grammar, the sentence formation, the structure, the content, and everything. And once you have some experience with blog writing, maybe start looking out for some technical writing internships. So there is this one particular community in India called as Geeks for Geeks. I guess everyone has heard about it. So they have a very popular technical writing internship program. So I guess like you get paid something around 400 or 500 rupees for every article that you write. And I see that a lot of beginners actually do these kind of internships to start developing some experience in technical writing. So once you have this kind of experience, maybe start looking for open source communities. There are a lot of communities that are looking for documentation and technical writers. So start pitching out to them. Start saying like, okay, hey, I will be working on your documentation, and I can work on these, and these specific parts. So they'll be more than happy to have you contribute, and they can also teach you a lot of things in the process if you're unfamiliar with your technology stack. And once you start contributing, there is no going back. You just start developing your skill set, you start developing your expertise, and this is how you move ahead with the whole community.
Yep. So audience, now you have two things to target upon: GSoC and GSOD. Uh,
Yeah.
I have a pretty interesting thing to ask to you now.
Mhm.
Uh, what are open source full-time jobs? If you could throw some lights on it.
So there are a lot of companies that are hiring for full-time open source developers as well. So don't just think that open source is limited to GSoC or
This is a
GSOD or maybe LSS.
very little
Yeah.
known fact about open source jobs.
Exactly. So there are a lot of companies that is hiring for open source developers. So they will not be exactly be making you to work on their software. They want you to continue working on open source project itself. So your entire open source contributions are literally funded. So one of the companies that comes to my mind is my own company itself because I work with it full time, and it is Quantized Labs. So Quantized Labs is kind of the open source research division of Quantized, and as you might notice, it supports a lot of open source project, and we are sponsored by a lot of companies right now. So we have the Chan Zuckerberg initiative that is from Facebook, which is now called Meta. We have sponsorship from Microsoft, from TensorFlow, from AMD, Intel, DE Shaw, and more. And the project that we do right here is very diverse. So NumPy, Jupyter Lab, Conda Forge, Dask, Spider, SkyPy, ZAR, Numba, SymPy, PyTorch Ignite. And these kind of projects are supported by these companies. So as you might like understand, all that we have to do at Quantsite is to just contribute to these kind of projects. And our contribution is not just limited to code. We also work on documentation. We also work on accessibility, designing, community management, and everything like that. Recently, we got the CZI funding. So that exactly gave us a lot of monetary benefits so that we can continue our initiatives towards contributing to these kind of projects. So Quantized also has an annual internship program. I was a part of the first internship cohort this year. So they will also be opening their internship programs next year. So if you're someone who is very new to open source, maybe you have not even contributed to any open source programs, you can surely apply to Quantized internship. And let me tell you, Quantized internship is one of the best paid internships that you can get, especially for someone who is staying in India. So you will currently enjoy a lot. There is another company that works on open source. A lot of my friends actually got into this company, so I can surely talk about it. And it is Voltron Data. So if you're someone who likes to do C++, kernel engineering, and all of that, Voltron Data pretty much works on that itself. And they currently work on the Apache Arrow ecosystem. Apache Arrow basically allows us to set up like data engineering pipelines across various cloud service providers. And this is a project under the Apache Software Foundation. So you can check out Voltron Data. They also have a lab section where they pretty much work on open source stuff itself. And they're also building the next generation infrastructure for data science. Currently, Quantized and Voltron both are working on QuantaForge, which is kind of a package manager for Python-based projects. So this is also quite an interesting company, and you can surely check that out. There are also multiple other companies that are working on it. Like one of the enterprise companies that come to my mind is Red Hat. So I have been like an intern at Red Hat before, and like few teams at Red Hat pretty much works on open source project itself, like Kubernetes, Helm, then Build that, Docker, and more of them, because we also have like downstream products for them, something that we're offering on the enterprise level. So Red Hat gives its interns and full-time employees a lot of opportunities to continue contributing to open source, even though you might have to work on some of their downstream components as well. We also have got VMware.com. Like VMware, as you might know, like it is a multi-cloud provider, and they have like a lot of cloud-based services and virtualization services available here. So at VMware, we have got a particular team called as a Tanzo that basically allows you to contribute to Kubernetes, which is an upstream project. So as you can see, like almost every company right now, even Facebook, Google, they have like got particular open source teams that whose main responsibility is to just keep contributing to open source project. So if you really like the world of open source, if you want to keep contributing to it, keep building your skills in it, this is quite an interesting space to live in. And literally, you won't need any data structures or algorithm skill. So if you hate competitive coding, if you hate doing algorithmic-based interviews, you can surely go for these things. I have given interviews for a lot of these companies, and they have not asked me a single DS algo question, but they have surely asked me a lot of system design questions and all of that.
Yeah.
So that's quite an interesting thing.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
But I'm sure this is going to help everyone a lot. I personally myself have gained so much knowledge from this talk. So before wrapping up, I would like to ask audience if they have some doubts or just fancy saying asking anything. Please feel free to ask.
Yeah.
We'll be having a Q&A session. Please feel free to ask.
Maybe you can open up their, like, you can lift up their mic restrictions. They can also like unmute themselves and they
Yeah,
can
I
put
have
up a
enabled the mics for everyone.
Yep.
and the chat option as well, so that they can put up any question if they don't want to communicate verbally.
If you could put it up in chat.
I don't think the chat option is enabled, or is it?
It is enabled, I guess.
Cool, cool.
The chat option is enabled for all the students of our college. So
Yeah.
they can ask out there, and then Sir Tushar can just relay it.
Cool.
Yep. You could put out your questions on the chat. I guess there are no questions from audience side.
Mm-hmm. So if any one of you would like to reach out to me, the best place is LinkedIn or Twitter. But unfortunately, I'm very less active on both of them, but that's the only communication channel I'm active on. So feel free to like drop me a message and I will surely reply to it like on the best of my schedule. And yeah, so best of luck for your GSoC or GSoC journey. Or maybe if you would just like to know how to contribute to open source in a much better way, uh, just ping me up and I'll make sure that I can communicate all the help I can provide.
We have a question from Namandeep Singh. He asked, what are some of the prerequisites for GSOCs for first year student?
Um, so I won't be dissuading anyone, but literally saying doing your GSoC in your very first year is not a very good idea. I have seen students do that and they really do great afterwards. But I have seen that they already have a lot of understanding before joining college. So some of them have been programming for the past few years and they already had a firm grip on the technologies that they're supposed to contribute in. So if you're someone who is starting your college with a clean slate, with very less idea about computer science and the technologies, maybe just give yourself a year of time and explore things instead of going in for GSoC. In my first year, I was pretty much clean. Like I had some basic idea of programming before. I have done like C++ and Java, but I started on a clean slate, just like everyone else. I did some data structures and algorithm. I went into participating in a lot of competitive coding contests and even won a lot of at them. Then I started doing hackathons and all of that before jumping into open source. So give yourself a bit of a time to understand things, to analyze things, and see like what exactly fits you the best. But if you still want to go with open source, literally all of the tips that I shared before stands true for anyone, be it a first year or second year or a third year, maybe even a professional. You need to find up an organization that suits you the best, that you can particularly contribute to, and you can easily understand your technology stack and more. So pick up one or two issues, try to patch them up, raise a pull request for them, communicate with the mentors, understand the project that you're supposed to work on, prepare a proposal, and just hang tight. And if everything goes well, you will be selected for it, and you will get a chance to work with your mentors for the next 2 or 3 months.
Yep. Thank you for your answers, Harsh. This was really an amazing session.
Yeah,
I really learned a lot and hope this has benefited the whole community.
yeah.
Sir, can you please drop your LinkedIn account?
Chat is not enabled for me, so Tushar, can you do that
The LinkedIn
instead?
account has been shared on your Discord server. You can check it.
Yep.
Okay, cool, cool. Thanks a lot. Yeah.
Do we have any other questions? I guess we could wrap up for today.
Yeah. I would just like to say hi to Shubhankar because I have known like Shubhankar for many
Hi
years
Harsh,
now. Hi Shubhankar, how are you doing?
I'm doing